This conference
Pre-proposal.
will now be recorded.
Did everyone hear that? Okay. Welcome to the Space Coast TPO Audit Pre-Selection Virtual Meeting for RFP 2022-01 Audit Services. My name is Jillian John, and I'm the Finance and Contracts Manager here at Space Coast TPO. And with me today is my boss, Laura Carter, Assistant Director of Space Coast TPO. Okay, I will now turn this meeting over to Laura so she can give you an overview of Space Coast TPO.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Jillian. As Jillian mentioned, I'm Laura Carter. I am the Assistant Director of the Space Coast TPO, and I'll go over a brief overview of both the financial and how the TPO was established here at the Space Coast. The Space Coast TPO was established via an interlocal agreement with local jurisdictions on October 19th back in 1977. At that time, and still today, the local urbanized area reached 200,000 in population, which is the threshold that once it is reached, an area is required to have what is known as a metropolitan planning organization, also known as a transportation planning organization. MPOs were created by federal legislation in the 60s and are tasked with prioritizing local transportation improvements that are funded with federal and state transportation funds. The TPO operates and fulfills the requirements of Florida Statute 339.175. The transportation grants that the TPO utilizes to operate with, which are the funds that will be audited with the award of this RFP, are passed from the federal level through the state via a formula established in the Federal Highway Transportation Act. The current one is currently known as the FAST Act, which is up for renewal by Congress literally today. It is known as the Infrastructure Bill. It is likely a continuing resolution will be passed before a new infrastructure bill is fully passed. MPOs are one of the rare organizations that are actually funded, even though that's a federal mandate, they do come with funding. So briefly, the Space Coast TPO has three main sources of funds. The first one is federal funds. This is the majority of our funding. We receive 3 grants, a planning grant, which is provided via a formula in the FAST Act. And then we also utilize SU, or what is known as Surface Transportation Block Grant Program, STBG. Those are federal funds that MPOs receive that can be utilized on a broad range of priorities such as planning, which is what we use them for. And we also use those funds for design, right-of-way construction, etc. The third federal funding source is FTA, or Federal Transit Administration Planning Funds, Section 5305D. Our second source, other than federal, is state funding. Previously, we did have this in our operating budget, but currently state funding is actually soft match, which is used for our PL and FTA grants. We do not actually budget a soft match, so that is not something that you will have to audit, but be aware that it is something that is used to support our grants. Lastly, the local funding is provided by the Brevard County Board of County Commissioners via an interlocal agreement. It is used to support staff's local transportation planning activities, and it is set as a flat annual rate of $60,000 per year. The TPO's financial records are budgeted on the October to September fiscal year. Although our grants, some of them run from July to June because they do come through the state with their fiscal year. Our budget is established within Brevard County's financial SAP system. However, it is in its own separate fund. Each grant is then budgeted and monitored in separate cost centers or accounts. In fiscal year 21, we had 7 accounts within our one fund, and our total operating budget was $1.9 million. Because we expend over the $750,000 threshold in federal funding each year, we are required to have an audit conducted in accordance to the Single Audit Act, and our finances must adhere to not only Florida statutes for audits, but to CFR 200, the Code of Federal Regulations, Part F. Although we are housed within the county's financial system, please be understanding that we are considered an independent organization and we operate as such with our own set of policies and procedures. We have a total of 9 full-time staff members. The financial budget is mainly used for staff salaries and benefits, funding our consultants and contracts for services, and a small amount is then left over for day-to-day operations such as our office supplies, purchasing of computers, and postage items. Next slide, Jillian. For this auditing services contract, the audits required will cover 5 fiscal years, with the first one beginning with fiscal year ending September 30th, 2021 today. There is an option within the contract to extend for 1 additional fiscal year 26, meaning that there would be no more than 6 audits that would be prepared. The next slide. For your information, just to give you an idea of what we have been paying for our previous audits over the years, in fiscal year 18, the cost was $14,500, and in 19, $14,750. And as you can see, for the audit we just completed this past year for fiscal year 2020 was $15,000. Please keep in mind when you're developing your fee proposal that all costs should be considered, including overhead, travel, etc., as the contract is awarded basically as a lump sum basis, and we typically will pay in 3 installments, but that's negotiable. We would not pay any quicker though than a monthly invoicing system. With that, I'll turn it back over to Jillian, who will go over a little bit more detail of what is required for submittal.
Okay. Next item we'll discuss is the proposal format, submission, required forms for the contract. A description of the format for the RFP, it is highlighted in the RFP package, but here are some things that I just want to highlight for you. Package should consist of no more than 25 pages maximum for the entire proposal. You are required to submit 1 original and 3 copies of the proposal, and also 1 electronic copy in Adobe PDF format on a USB flash drive. Binders are prohibited. However, you can use dividers and tabs within your proposal and it will not count towards your maximum count. These are the required forms that are required to be in your proposal packages. And these forms can be obtained off of our TPO website. Terms of agreement for the contract. The winning firm will be required to sign a professional services agreement. A draft of the agreement is available for you online on our TPO website for your review. And as Laura has stated earlier, the contract is for 5 fiscal years with a one-time option for 1 additional year for a maximum of 6 years. Oral presentations format. The selection committee will consist of 3 TPO governing members. Your presentation will last 30 minutes, 15 minutes for oral presentations, and 15 minutes for questions from the committee. Only the presenting firm and key staff will be allowed in the room at the time of each presentation. Your presentation must comply with Section 508 ADA. And here's the list of what it requires, which is also available in the RFP package for you. Your format will consist of these items here that is required for your presentations. The presentation order will be provided after we've received all the proposal and after the proposal due date, and at least 1 week in advance of the presentation date. Evaluation criteria. Here's a breakdown of what you'll be evaluated on by the committee. Technical experience, max points to be earned in this category is 45. Responsiveness to proposal and approach, max points to be earned in this category is 30 points. Qualification of staff, max points to be earned is 25 points for an overall total of 100 points. Evaluation committee again will consist of 3 TPO governing board members. Award of contract and approval. The scores will be tabulated and announced at the end of oral presentations. The contract will be awarded to the firm receiving the highest average score. The highest average score. The TPO, us, will present the committee's recommendation to the TPO governing board when they meet on December 21st for approval. Once approved, an engagement letter will be done and completed in December, and the auditors will begin work in January. Here's some reminders that we'd like to highlight for you guys. Deadline for your questions, October 6th. Proposal deadline is due to us October 12th by 12 noon Eastern Standard Time. And auditing committee will meet November 4th, 9 a.m. Are there any questions? Okay. Well, thank you for attending this virtual meeting, and this concludes the audit selection pre-proposal virtual meeting for RFP 202201. Thank you for attending and have a good day.
Thank you. I'd also like to just mention real quickly, if something comes across your minds at a later date, please just submit your questions in writing to myself. That information's in the RFP package and on our website. Thank you.
Goodbye.
Thank you.
Welcome.